Hello and welcome back to NoBS. Today we return to talking about one of the biggest cities in the United States and one of the most troubled ones too. I'm of course talking about Chicago, Illinois. Recently, a news story has come out of that town that's rather surprising and a bit alarming, but also not totally unexpected. You see, what happened and what's coming out of Chicago this week is the mayor of Chicago recently made a few announcements and she decided to protect her own neighborhood despite ignoring the rest of the town. That's right. She seemed to see some sorts of demonstrations and people, protesting as they do these days. And this caused the mayor of Chicago, named Lori Lightfoot, she decided to protect her neighborhood and make sure that her and her house were safe. Now, that seems pretty normal and expected. I mean, you want the leader of your town to be safe. You want your neighborhood to be safe. I mean, that's not really bad on its own. But when you consider this character, this Democratic mayor, and how she's ruined the city and how she's treated these protests in other situations, it's definitely coming across as hypocritical. You see, this is the same kind of Democrat who said these demonstrations are okay. They encourage them even. They tell people to go out and protest and support BLM and Antifa. And even to make matters worse, these people are the same people, the same Democrats who are letting these criminals go. They arrest these protesters when they start to break laws. They start to break things in the street, break glass, hurt each other, causing assaults and stuff like that. But then the mayor and all these Democrats, they let these criminals go because they're part of the protest group. And there's also this weird connection where the Democrats, they want to let these protesters do whatever they want and let this crime go crazy because, well, there's two big reasons. First of all, they want these people to still vote for Democrats. They still want their votes. That way they can stay in power. They can keep getting money and keep embezzling and doing illegal things in office. And in addition, they're also trying to get President Trump out of office. They want more chaos in the streets. They want this country to go downhill as hard as possible. That way they can blame it on Trump and then get a win in this upcoming election. So we're going to talk more about this story soon. We're going to go over Lori Lightfoot and what she's done and how she's being super hypocritical, all this and more. But first, let's take a quick moment to check out our sponsor. With election season in full swing, I've got a very, very interesting and cool special offer just for you guys, the NoBS audience. Today, I'm going to give you guys a chance to buy the 2020 Battle for the White House chess set. That's right, for less than $40, you can own a piece of history with this limited edition chess set that features Donald Trump himself. That's right, President Donald Trump is one of the king pieces, as is the Democratic nominee, which will obviously be former Vice President Joe Biden. Looks like we got Richard Cheney, Kevin McCarthy, Brett Kavanaugh, Michael Pence, Donald Trump on the right side. We've got Sonia Sotomayor, Chuck Schumer, Joe Biden, and all kinds of other people on the Democratic side. Look, there's a Ruth Bader Ginsburg piece. This is pretty awesome. Even though there's some of these are politicians you might not like, I think it's pretty funny, pretty cool. You got Barack Obama over here. Chess is really, really cool. It's a game that's for very smart people, of course. So if you think you're smart and cool enough to own this one, click the link below this video. Thanks for your time. Enjoy the new chess set if you order it. And now back to the show. Great. Now that that's out of the way, let's get back to the Chicago Lori Lightfoot story. I first saw information about it from this tweet. It says, citing threats, Mayor Lori Lightfoot defends ban on protesters on her block. I have a right to make sure that my home is secure. Now, as we said before, this is highly hypocritical for someone like this. This is someone who's supported protesters and encouraged this stuff to happen throughout her city. In fact, Chicago has a big crime problem that was happening far before this summer of Sam, this kind of madness that's been going on in the United States, which is a mix of people being scared about the virus and the pandemic that started at the beginning of this year, and also people getting race baited and this whole race war starting because of a few arrests gone wrong that the news covered as racist, which really there was no proven racism. But regardless, we've had a crazy summer, but Chicago's been in trouble before that. They've had a lot of crime problems for years. They're like the murder capital of the country. People are getting killed by weapons every day there. Like many, many people are dying. And it's because of mayors like Lori Lightfoot. They're just very, very pro-crime and anti-police. That's the funny thing about this story. Like these people want to defund the police and they want to remove the cops, which is just going to make more crime easier to happen. And that's what's happening in these places. And in addition, as we mentioned in the intro, they're letting a lot of criminals go too. So they break a law and then they let them go because they don't want to be hard on these BLM, Antifa, minority type activists who are breaking the law, but since they have the law and the government on their side, they're getting let go. And that's what made the city get so bad. And then the very hypocritical part is, of course, they caused this chaos in the whole city. Mayor Lori Lightfoot is a big part of the problem. But then when the problem comes to her doorstep, she's more than happy to change plans, say, hey, the cops are good now. Let's start arresting people. Anyone that comes close to my house has to be stopped. But if it happens in other places, that's okay. She's going to let the rest of the city go crazy. And this has happened before, actually. This is very, very similar to another story in another Democratic city. I believe it was Minneapolis was the one, because that's where that first arrest went wrong. And that's where this whole race baiting thing started this summer. And they're also one of the first places Minneapolis was trying to remove the police force, trying to defund the police. And the funny thing about that was when they started to do that, they got rid of cops, but then they hired their own private security people for the government employees. So it's very like hypocritical. It's like, okay, the city can't have cops, but we still have our own police force to protect us. And that's very similar to what Mayor Lori Lightfoot is doing here. She says the rest of the town can have protests and chaos going on and the cops are defunded. But when it comes to her doorstep, she's not going to be treated the same way. It's the classic liberal double standards that we've become too accustomed to in recent times, but they're really still just as bad as they ever were. It's just we're expecting them now because it happens so often. So with that said, let's read on into this article. This is from a Chicago newspaper. It says, citing threats, Mayor Lori Lightfoot defends a ban on protesters on her block. I have a right to make sure that my home is secure. Yeah, you do have a right, but so does the rest of your town. Like, you should be protecting everyone in your town, not just yourself. Like, it just seems very selfish, very hypocritical, very, very just off-putting. You know, I can't believe she thought this would be okay and not be called out. And here you can see a lot of the cops she's hired to protect herself. Apparently, she doesn't defund these police. These police are not being told to back off or let the criminals run amok. So that's what's happening here. Let's go ahead and read on and see if there's more details. Mayor Lori Lightfoot defended the Chicago Police Department's ban on protesters being able to demonstrate on the block where she lives, telling reporters Thursday that she and her family at times require heightened security because of threats she receives daily. Lightfoot refused to elaborate on the specific threats, but said she receives them daily against herself, her wife, and her home. Comparisons to how the police department has protected previous mayors' homes, such as Rahm Emanuel's Ravenswood residents, are unfair because this is a different time like no other, Lightfoot told reporters. So she's trying to justify the fact that she's giving herself more protection, more security. She's getting more special treatment, really. This is what liberals and Democrats are all about. Not to mention, we, of course, can tell that this person is a minority. She's also an alphabet person. So she's got this very, very kind of double-edged sword. She's got all this protection, at least according to Democrats. They have this hierarchy of race and sexual preference. I know it sounds weird, but this is how they work. It's super lame and messed up. But they think that minorities and alphabet people, LGBTQ, elemental P, HIJK, elemental P, you know, something like that. That's what they think. They think if you have these traits, if you're born a certain way, you're better than everyone else. And that's what emboldens people like this mayor. She feels like she has the right to do stuff like this. She has a right, and she thinks she's better than everyone else. She says this is a time like no other, which is partially true. I mean, there is a lot of chaos going on this year, but this happened like last election too. I mean, definitely not as bad, definitely in different ways, but these elections have happened before. There's been strife and protests before. It's a little different, but you really got to admit it's being caused by the Democrats. These demonstrators are not good old-fashioned, hard-working, middle-class, like conservative voters. No, these are all Biden voters. These are all people, you know, who have been destroying their own cities, been attacking each other, hurting people in public, and causing chaos. And this mayor has encouraged it. And now that it's come to her doorstep, she's ready to protect herself and finally arrest some of these protesters. She said protesting isn't cool now, which is something that probably should have been brought up a long time ago. I think that residents of the city understanding the nature of the threats that we are receiving on a daily basis, understand I have a right to make sure that my home is secure, Lightfoot said. I believe there's a typo there, but whichever. Lightfoot and Chicago Police Superintendent David Brown were asked at an unrelated news conference about a Tribune report noting police have banned protesters from demonstrating on her block in the Logan Square neighborhood, ordering officers to arrest anyone who refuses to leave. So that's pretty harsh. You know, I mean, that's pretty hardcore, actually. That's why they're calling it Fort Lori, I believe, is the nickname for this area. Like, she's caused this whole kind of ruckus. Like you could see there's barricades and cops setting up barriers. Like she's really going like full, I would say like a militaristic kind of thing. This is like what they would call fascism. Like the liberals always want to call everything fascist. And this is really more akin to that. I mean, this is what they try to accuse President Trump of doing. They act like he's going to send in troops and, you know, ruin this place and take away people's freedoms. But yeah, I think she's the one who really is taking away the right to protest to these people. I mean, they don't have a right to break things and break the law, but they're certainly exercising protest in some cases. And I'm not going to say I'm for that. I mean, I think a lot of these protests are lame and unnecessary, but the point is the hypocrisy, the, you know, people treating the Democrats differently, the Democrats having this idea of do as I say, not as I do. The directive surfaced in a July email from the then Shakespeare District Commander Melvin Roman to officers under his command. It did not distinguish between the peaceful protesters Lightfoot regularly says she supports and those who might intend to be destructive, but ordered that after a warning given to demonstrators, it should be locked down. Activists and police sources could not cite instances when the city repeatedly locked down her predecessor Emmanuel's block against protesters. The Kenwood block, where former President Barack Obama lived with his family when his primary residence was in Chicago, was shut down for access only by residents after his election. So they're comparing it to other politicians and other situations in the same city, and it just seems like Lightfoot is just totally happy with spending extra money on her own family. I mean, I don't think there's a problem. People want to be safe and secure. I don't know if she's overhyping this or just not realizing how hypocritical it looks, but it's definitely bad. It's definitely a bad look, and it's showing how terrible and corrupt the Chicago political system is. It comes right from the top. The mayor is one of the worst mayors in our country. Another one to be added to the list of bad female Democratic mayors for whatever reason. A lot of these kinds of people run their cities into the ground. They steal, they get caught, they have to resign. We've covered these guys over and over the years. It's happened in other liberal cities like Nashville, San Francisco mayor, places like that. They always have these kinds of woke, left-wing female Democrats, and they're just the worst. And I don't know why they keep electing these terrible people, but it really needs to stop. That about wraps things up. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Make sure you comment your thoughts on everything below. Also hit that like button to get this thing shared. Subscribe if you're new, and hit the bell for notifications. Until next time, have a great day.